Electricity is one of my favorite things. It's hard not to like electricity. All right. Shout out to electricity. I think I share that viewpoint with a lot of people because of all the immense, wonderful things electricity brings to us, like batteries and personal aids. Um, it's really incredible. The story of electricity. I was watching this documentary on YouTube. Some like professor guy goes back to way ancient times and goes through the history of the various ways that pre download.com human beings used electricity or encountered electricity. And it's like a 3 hour, it's an old documentary. And so I'm not really past the part where they actually start calling it electricity. I'm not sure what they're calling it at this point. But one of the interesting things is that like it was making me think of, so one of the earliest Western trick was a show, a guy that did like a show for lecture halls and stuff. I think that was a thing. Like magicians were like Hugh Jackman in that Prestige movie where they would perform tricks in front of academics, and this was one of the places. But it was also I think like a public entertainment thing. I'm very dumb. I have no idea. Circus act. What the fuck do I know? And boy, you ever find half our piece of rice? Geez, that's unnerving. Wouldn't that's finding rice would be really bad if you hadn't recently eaten rice because you think it's something else, you know? Like, oh God, no. Anyway, this fella had a trick where he had this glass globe, so they were able to shape glass, and it was attached to two spinny bits, axles, I guess. And somehow he was able to spin it, and it would get it going really fast. So it was like a basketball, like a spinning ball. It's not that complicated. And it would spin, and he would put his hand on top of it, touching it, and it was smooth. Although I was worried about splinters, you know, and glass splinters are the worst kind. But he, you know, obviously it was like a polished glass thing, and a weird blue light would glow inside the glass ball thingy, and that was like a amazing display of some power that people didn't know what to make of it because they didn't have electricity. Electricity is a power, one of the four fundamental forces that human beings have done the best to wrangle. We have, this is me being I love sciencey stuff, but I shouldn't be talking science because I'm not a fucking scientist, but my brother is, so I'm kind of one. The four fundamental forces are strong nuclear, the weak nuclear. Those are basically the part where two protons are collided into becoming a double proton thing we call helium. And that strong nuclear, I think, is what holds the two protons together. And it's also what's released when we perform fission, which is splitting an atom into its components, separating the two protons. And I believe that disrupts the strong nuclear force and it releases all this immense nuclear force. There's the weak nuclear force, which I believe is similar or some. It's also part of that whole equation. It might be something to do with the electron. I don't know. I don't know. I should. Terrible with podcasting. The other two are a little more familiar. One is called gravity. By far, it's the weakest. It's so weak even you can overcome it. An insult wrapped as a obvious insult. The gravity, you just lift your arm. You've defeated gravity. Not really, but gravity is what we describe as the warping of space-time caused by concentrations of mass, which is actually a much more updated definition of gravity because we experience gravity as a force that pulls us towards the Earth, not necessarily understanding we're going towards the middle of the Earth, the gravitational center of the Earth. But gravity is actually a little more complicated. It's not. I wasn't intending on talking about any of this. It's it's an illusion because what's actually happening is that your location in space is what determines how much you accelerate across a geodesic, which is a straight line on a curve. Okay. And because Earth distorts space a lot, since it's big and heavy, it's got a big old ball right in the middle of iron and a bunch of melted iron and nickel and other shit around it. And it's a big old ball. The position that you have from the center of Earth's mass is determines the rate of acceleration you experience at all times. It's just that your rate of acceleration is stopped by the other things that are also stopped, such as your bed, if you jump on your bed, or the floor, or the ground, or something like that. So if you step out of a window, you're now no longer being obstructed by a floor, and your position in space takes on it starts to change because you already are always traveling down that accelerated, or you're always accelerating along that curved straight line, the geodesic that is formed by the three-dimensional warping of Earth as a planet. You're also affected by the gravity of the moon and the sun and larger bodies like that. But for all intents and purposes, though, the way we understand gravity is fairly well understood, even with Newtonian physics, which might not accurately reflect Einstein's theories, but it's still for the non-extremes, such as the small scale where quantum stuff becomes dominant, and the super high scale of where quantum stuff becomes I have no idea. I don't know. But it works. Gravity. Point is, we can send shit to fucking Pluto and say it's going to be there at 7 p.m. on Friday in 15 years. And we go, poof, go. And then it gets there and they go, we were wrong. It was actually 72 seconds. It was 7:01 12 seconds. We were off by a little bit. They were off by, I think, like 72 seconds on their prediction on where the mission that was flying past Pluto to take some photos of that hot bod. What a bod, Pluto. Punching an overweight, underweight, under your class, something. Nobody expected Pluto to be such a dynamic and interesting body out there. So fun to explore. We have a grasp on gravity really well, despite the oddness of not quite truly understanding what it is, because we still don't quite know what space-time is per se. Yet we have very strong predictive equations and a lot of practical application of our usage of those equations, thanks to Newton and then Einstein, who upgraded it to, like, how Dark Souls, the first one, well, Einstein is Dark Souls number 3, right? It's just good argument. I was the president of the debate club. I wasn't. I lost the election. Wasn't very persuasive. Fucking pieces of shit. So gravity's good. We got gravity. We don't need to know too much about gravity, right? Lawn darts are banned because they hurt people. Bullets should also be similarly banned, but some old rapist slave owners, some kidnapping human traffickers thought it would be a good idea for us to have guns or something. What the fuck? Oh yeah, lawn darts. They banned lawn darts because 1 or 2 children got killed. But well, okay. All right. So what's the fourth fundamental force? I was going to talk about Joe Biden. I don't know why electromagnetism. This really interesting, weird, it's kind of the same thing. Magnetism and electricity are like, I mean, obviously I wouldn't like have 2 like magnets that like click together and then I go, see, that's electricity, but they're related. They're very interconnected. You can generate electricity through moving magnets through electrical fields caused by coils of wire. You can also generate electricity by moving the coil of wire around magnets, and wires create fields around them. But we've really tamed more than gravity, a lot more than the nuclear force and the strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force. Although we use those to blow each other up and to make electricity for our vibrating video game controllers. But we've tamed electromagnetism. That's the one human beings, although there's still probably some amazing discoveries to be had. I'm sure if far advanced aliens showed up, they'd probably have even better HTC Vives to show off and stuff like that. But we've really got a grip on electricity extremely well and very powerfully. It's an immensely useful thing to wire up our homes and have this powerful thing, energy, power, this force living in our walls and transmitting across space. I can charge my phone without it touching. It has to, the wireless charging. And they want to do more wireless charging with cars, where you just drive up and the car sits atop like a charging pad for electrical cars. And that actually is probably going to be a thing. I saw something where they're talking about like doing the entire road as a charger. Seems a little ridiculous. Probably don't need that. Then the person pointing out was like, this makes no sense. This is a bad idea. But it's an idea. I can see that. One really cool possible electric innovation in electricity usage is low light solar panels, low light photovoltaics, I think is the word. So like you don't need direct sunlight. You can just have things absorbing ambient room light, and it'll stay charged. So if you could just build in into the materials, your TV could just absorb light and might not ever need to be plugged. It's like stuff wouldn't need to be plugged in necessarily. You'd have stuff on the walls that just if it's going to be in a room that gets light, it's going to always have a charge. I don't know if that's the solution to all of our problems, but it sounds interesting. If you think about how like, wow, you kind of would never have to plug anything in. And who knows? There's probably a lot of infrastructural stuff. There was some fucking point I was going to get to with this electric. Oh, okay. There was one other thing about gravity I was going to say, but that's all right. Oh, by the way, welcome to the show, everybody. Hello, it's me, Hank. This is the show. I'm wearing my hat. I got home from work. I do wear this hat at my job, and I like it. It just feels good on my bald head. It helps. It gives me a little layer of protection for when I bonk it on something. And another thing, though, just for anybody, and I don't think you need to be bald for this to be an effective choice for your life, is it's also kind of a face guard. If I'm somehow about to smack my nose into something and I've got this hat poking out 3 or 4 inches, it'll bonk on it. It'll bonk instead of my nose, and it's always better to bonk your hat than to bonk your nose. Okay, just good. It's just good to. It's just physics. So, electricity is this critical thing that our entire world is built on. And the future, we're going to kill ourselves to get electricity because we don't want to live we don't want to reduce the amount of electricity we use. We could do a hell of a lot better to increase efficiency in terms of our homes and our heating systems. And there should have been Works Progress Administration style jobs program that puts Americans into jobs, renovating people's houses and weatherizing them and making them really efficient and upgrading the power. Like there's all sorts of ways that we just let electricity bleed out even in the form of like heat. From your heater if it's electrical run or something, but like that's also super wasteful. We're totally abusing our access to energy, but we don't want to give up our access to energy, so we're going to kill all humans because the energy companies that produce it, the ones that provide the gas and oil and gasoline, for instance, those are using internal combustion engines, but that's also driving electricity creation, so that's also connected to it, I guess. It's not just electricity, but it is like we have to like, I really do believe there should only be a few acceptable technologies from here on out until we reach a certain level of environmental sustainability. But the only fucking things that should be allowed are durability. Like there should be incentives for getting rid of obsolescence, getting rid of planned obsolescence. The structure, the intentional design choice of making sure a refrigerator will wear out in X number of years. And I don't think you can necessarily produce things that are always going to last forever, but we could produce things that aren't built around profit, which means they would last a lot longer and be repairable. One of the interesting fronts for, I guess freedom, but having the right, one of the rights people used to enjoy, farmers or people who have machinery, was the right to repair machinery. But since everything's computer controlled, there's been a big fight with, and it's actually true within like the iPhone and the iPad kind of small consumer device world, as well as farmer world, where John Deere has the software and they don't get, if you have a breakdown, you got to go through their whole software ticketing thing, and you can't just go buy a part and come home and fix it or whatever. You can't fix it. So it's like there's various fights that are happening on local scales for right to repair and stuff. What the hell's that got to do with anything? I guess I'm saying like electricity is so important to us that we're going to kill. We're literally just going to like bake the planet into an uninhabitable something like Venus. But we're just going to move Earth's average. Like human beings can live within this little stretch of temperatures and like where we can survive. And it's like somewhere between 65 and 75. Obviously, we do fine above that. We do fine below that. But that's because we wear clothes that bring our temperature up to 65 or so. I mean, I don't know if those are the exact number. Don't hold me to that. But, and when we're super hot, we do everything we can to cool down. Because if we go too hot, we die. We get cooked. Like when those hornets attack a bee's nest, and all the bees swarm all over the hornets and heat up the hornet, and they don't just moves it outside the hornet's range and then dies. Which I think would be a fun way to die. It's being assaulted by, several thousand bees who warm you up, cooking you like a gas station burrito. So we're not as adaptable as we like to think. We just are able to bring our environment with us. That's how we do it. But we're making it so that the Earth's sort of averages is kind of like where our average is. Like, we've covered the planet with our litter creation. We litter everywhere we go. But we're slowly pushing that range. The Earth's averages are just going to get a little higher. The food's going to get a little harder to grow. The environment's going to change. Some of those changes might adapt in a way where, we didn't used to be able to grow food, but now we can grow food. But most of it is just like, biodiversity is going to go really quickly. Food, there's going to be all kinds of fights over food. Freshwater access is going to get really bad. The insurance thing is how you're going to see battles. This is already starting where insurance companies are stopping insuring along flooding plains or fire zones, like a lot in California already, apparently. So we don't have the kind of society or world that can stop the rich people who are in charge from killing everybody. We don't have that in us. We can only mitigate and answer it. And maybe there'll be magical market-based solutions to this nightmare world that we're aggressively building, and that it's going to require a tremendous amount. The two things that are going to get us through, first of all, there's one thing that gets us through, but the two things that are about that are needed, one is cooperation. That's the one where we could actually come out the other side with a better world after probably a lot of difficult decisions and several generations too. It's not like it could just happen quickly. The other one is violence. And violence is a great way to control people. And so I think we're going to see a lot more organized violence, a lot more aggressive policy violence, where we start to run into limits on resources. Right now we're still in a phase where the worst thing that can happen is that the rate of profit acquisition for the wealthy slows down. That's what happens. That's what a recession is, or a depression. But no matter what, the super wealthy are always going to do fine, even during any of those periods. Because they're insulated from any kind of damage. And anyway, why the fuck? Oh yeah. So electricity. God, I was going to talk I was like, I got to make this a half hour. It's Tuesday. I work today, and I'm hungry and I want to be done. I'm tired of thinking. I've been doing woodworking since 7 a.m. Actually, I got a few trays I'll share a little bit later. But anyway, I was watching this electricity documentary, and I was thinking about religion. This is not an anti-religion screed. I'm not looking to do that. I used to be more of a militant atheist and kind of just thought it was all sort of, I guess I had a more dogmatic atheism, fairly standard. It was never like ridiculously aggressive, but definitely dismissive of a lot of religious viewpoints. And I think I still am. And I think you should be. The Catholic Church is a centuries-old child rape organization, and it should be burned and liberate all the cool treasures they have in their basement, as well as maybe stop the raping of children. There's certainly plenty of other problems with organized religion. Well, I didn't mean to do this to shit on religion. I've evolved more into, I wouldn't even call myself spiritual. I'm not one of those types. I did hear someone say something interesting about what the hell. spirituality is sort of like just the like the hyper individualized notion of religion that we kind of have in Western societies, because you can sort of craft it however you want, customize it to yourself, and I think that's great. I think you should do that. But no, I just think we're all trapped on this planet together, and any attempt to reconcile or make some sense out of the sort of pointier bits, and we're not real big on on sanding off the pointy bits. We really seem to take pride in making life be on hard mode, especially in America. That's another metaphor that's been on my brain. It's like I want life to be on easy mode. And people would hear that and be like, that you're just being lazy. You just like, yeah, of course. Who the fuck wants this shit on hard mode where you have to like only a few percentage of people who have the most resilience and the most luck, by the way, and the most, it always comes down to, by and large, it comes down to, legacy advantages like being born into wealth and being born into the proper racial caste where there's going to be fewer obstructions to your success. But yeah, we have a hard mode world, and I suppose the people who say like, it was hard for me and I made it, like as an argument for not making things easier. I've always wanted to just like take those people aside and just be like, why are you like that? Like, what? It should be easier. We should make this easier, because there's always going to be the one thing that is hard, and that is asking girls to go roller skating with you when you're 13. It's terrifying. My mom can drive, I think. Then you fall on your butt right in front of her, bruise your tailbone, and then she roller skates away with a guy who doesn't have a bruised tailbone. You're sitting there just rubbing it. No, I didn't. I wasn't that brave when I was a young man. I remember there was this one girl in high school, and I was going to ask her to a dance. I didn't think it would. She was somebody who I didn't. Yeah, it didn't. It was. I didn't ask her. I was scared. But I was like, I would ask her. She was nice to me. Like I knew her, and like I was expecting a no, but also I was like, well, I think she wouldn't be too mad if I asked her. That terrified brain of a teenager. Some teenagers had the more confident type of brain, and I was just more like, oh God, hope I don't go bald in a year or two. That's what I was thinking when I was a teenager. So electricity, this force of electromagnetism, because you ever think about magnets? What did the people of the past think about with this rock, and it just like clicks, hits another rock? Just mind-blowing. Because magnets are still mind-blowing. You can feel it. We've all played with a couple of magnets. You feel it spin around. You can tell there's like an orientation that it seems to prefer, but we also know that it's a thing called magnets that smart people have figured out, but they're like snakes. They still move. They somehow are a thing that seems to not be rejected by the world. That is to say, it operates, since it's a thing that we've all seen. How a snake moves around, I don't fucking know. I don't have any idea. Like that's the only, like I don't want a president to be stupid. I don't think it's a job for a stupid person. But I would accept a level of stupidity where her president was like, snakes? I don't know. Like magnets? I don't know. That's not for my meat. I'd be like, that's about the level of stupidity I'd be okay with. I would prefer that they understand that at what it is. And actually, if you, the thing about snakes that finally clicked for me is it's just like a centipede it's in a sleeping bag. Its muscles move like little legs. It's just that it has all these little legs inside a bag. That's all it is. It's a long bag. So next time you're with your girlfriend or your boyfriend, you just say to them, you lean into their, get close, and someone obviously who you trust. I mean, they trust you, and you've already established that you're allowed to be this close. And you say to them, snakes are just like centipedes, but like in a bag. They're just like feet in a long. Snakes are just long bags of feet. That's what I should have said at first. You're getting late after that. All right. I don't care where you are. I don't care whose funeral you're at. So magnets existed in nature and still do. You'd find rocks that are magnetized, and we know how to like make magnets and turn them on and off and pick up cars and put the car in a smashing car bit and then smash the car and then pick up the smaller chunk of car that's now been smashed and where all the drugs are hidden. But electricity, so magnets have an incidental presence in the world. head down to Vienna and look at the magic rock. It would have been like a freak show you'd see in the 11th century, right? Don't Google that. But all electricity, before there was even a notion of electricity, was also present. It was present in the form of lightning, although there's probably people who just lived in places that didn't get lightning. But I don't know if that's, yeah, probably somewhere. Who knows? But that's obviously like a very overwhelming, powerful thing of electricity. In fact, one of the major stages of understanding electricity was when they actually finally figured out that lightning was electricity, was the same, because there'd been experiments happening where they could create very small amounts of sparks or something like that. And when they actually like proved that lightning and the stuff they were doing in a lab was the same stuff, that was a big deal. So lightning is this amazing, powerful, I miss thunderstorms, actually. That's one thing I'd like to get back into my life. I just want to live somewhere where I can turn my speakers up loud enough to hear thunderstorms again. I'm very considerate about my neighbors. All they ever hear is just me screaming about podcasting. No, I close the window. I'm self-conscious. But lightning also, or electricity, was also a thing to anybody who was near fur, right? And metal. So I think most cultures and societies had fur because of fur and metal. And I'm talking about static electricity. So static electricity was understood, was a thing in the world. And just imagine that there was zero comprehension of electricity. It would never, like, it's as fantastical as something I couldn't even imagine, right? But nevertheless, there were the occasional moment where you reached for someone else, because sometimes you can just static shock somebody else because you built up a charge. You've seen this lightning, which you might not have understood to be electricity, but you had moments where you touch something, I have a peanut butter lid, and it zaps you, and you get a shock where you saw it happen to someone else. And what did they think of that? With no way to contextualize it. It's magical. It's so like phosphorescent beaches where you've seen the videos where people run around and it's at night and they step on the water and the pressure activates the bacteria in the water that phosphoresces and it glows blue, and the waves are glowing blue. Or lightning bugs, for instance. That's absolutely one of those things that, like, it's indicative of magic. And maybe just being alive is supposed to feel like magic. Huh? You ever think about that? Joe Rogan? Huh? There's a very Joe Rogan start to the show, isn't it? I'm not going to go down the Rogan hole. You've heard enough people talking about it. I don't care if you cancel your Spotify or not. I did. And I don't care if they cancel him either. The only comment I have on it is the same as most of this sort of thing, these kinds of mass panics. First of all, he's reached a place. I said I wasn't going to say anything. Here I am. Way past his normal station of just being a UFC guy and a comedian who does long podcasts. It became so popular that he's bigger than all the networks. He gets more viewers, more listeners. Something I've heard, 11 million per episode or so. That's not a small amount. And that's a very influential person. And I think the company he works for has an obligation to provide some editorial control over medical information. When you have a large enough audience, you have a responsibility to either show some fealty to both science, but also to your own ignorance. That is to say, don't do medical stuff, or just to not do medical stuff. Why are you talking medical shit? Shut the fuck up about medical anything. I mean, I will talk about COVID here and there, but like telling people what to take, what the fuck? What are you doing? And anyway, you see, you have a responsibility, especially when you have an audience that size, that's that sizable. But it makes me think of like Rush Limbaugh, not the right wing comparison, but just like having a commentator. Howard Stern used to be in the news cycles fairly often for things he would say that would upset people. Like if it makes it to the Today Show, that's essentially what means it's hit the big tray cart to the dim sum dining room of America. Man, I could go for some dim sum. God. Woo, baby. I am horny for food. I would love a fun girlfriend and we go get really fat on dim sum, and then we're too fat to have sex until the next day. But we watch some HBO show before the next day, while we take turns having diarrhea in the diarrhea closet. That's my dream. That's my dream. But I had some Rogan thing. This is just, to me, an expression of people not having a lot of power in their worlds. People, in America especially, are consumers. We've been conditioned to be consumers and workers. Those are the two things. What do you do and what do you buy are essentially the two things we all are, questions we'll be talking about at our next party. And so we don't have notions of like being a local citizen or having influence over local politics or our own lives, even, or through maybe a democratic process at your own workplace, such as a union or a co-op or something like that. So that's completely cut off. We're completely cut off from our interests having any impact on society, on actual law, on legislation. There's been tons of studies that show that the wealthy, their interests correlate with the way the rules are wound up being written, and regular people, they have absolutely, there's some study I'm picturing right now, but where it's just a flat line between what people want and what people get. So we don't have power. We're just powerless. And one of the ways people do have power is via an emergent property of being defined as a consumer. And so you complain to the manager. You tell someone's boss that you're not happy with that person, and you expect the boss to do something about it. The customer is always right. So I just see it as like just another weird thing where I think large people with very large platforms and very large media figures, I don't think it's weird for that person to be at the center of some kind of controversy, especially since they had to have on 70 different shows because he said the N-word a bunch of times. There's a lot of sensitivities surrounding the N-word that are not my place to comment on, other than I trust black people when they say they don't want to hear white people say that word. I trust that. That's all I need to know. I don't need to hear anything else as far as where I'm going to source my opinion. I remember this guy at a comedy show once. It wasn't even a bit, but he goes, white guys want everybody to quit being so sensitive. How come everybody's so sensitive? Like, and that's the default seems to be if you're a white guy in this country. It's like, geez, what's such a big deal to you? Why do you care that much? Geez, you're so sensitive about it. Geez, why don't you just cool it? Why don't you just be more resilient? Some bullshit like that. Where I'm like, no, I think you should be fucking sensitive. Especially to shit white people do, and because Western society and our brave blended whites of America have done a terrible number on all kinds of people for all sorts of fucked up reasons, primarily having to do with not wanting to work and greed. So meaning wanting other people to work so that we don't have to, get the benefit of it. So people are powerless because and there would be less of this sort of like mass public outrage if there were if people had if that powerlessness wasn't there, if there were a sense that they were part of a community, that their voice mattered, that they might not be in full charge. I don't think everybody wants to be fucking crazy. Anybody that really wants power is someone who shouldn't have power. But it just always, the Rogan thing to me, I'm just seeing it as a fairly sizable impact crater on the moon of human powerlessness and our desperate, cloying attempts to have some agency, especially as we watch society crumble around us, because it's clear the government is completely wedded to outdated ideas and outdated people and outdated institutions. So, which is actually what I was going to get at with this podcast, but I'm already over 35 minutes. We'll do it really quickly, but the point I'm making though is that the more we're able to explain the world, the harder it becomes to talk people into religion, and that's great. That's a good thing. So yeah, electricity. Thanks to our exposure, even us dumbasses that don't know what it is or how it works or anything like that, we at least are somewhat immune from someone showing us static electricity and then getting us to give them money for their religion. So that's a good thing. That's what I was thinking about the other day while I was watching the electricity documentary. Great, good fucking show, Hank. Speaking of outdated pieces of shit, Joe Biden. I wanted to correct something I said in the last show that cops were never allowed to just take whatever they want. That was clearly not true. I had just said something about how Joe Biden was a big part of the civil asset forfeiture program, and that's what I meant in the formal way. Police Origins, really interesting series on a great podcast called Behind the Bastards. I think it's 2020, so got to go back in the archives around June when the George Floyd protests were popping off. They did like a 6 or 7 part series about the origins of the police. Really, really worth listening to and entertaining. That guy Robert Evans is funny, and they've got a pretty big audience, I think. So, but Behind the Bastards is a great podcast. But yeah, go back to the June of 2020 and listen to the police origins, as well as all the other episodes. They were slave patrols, and they were KKK, and they were there to recover property, stolen property that fled, that ran away, and so they've always only been a tool of the landed classes and the ruling class and white supremacy. So yeah, police could, modern iteration of police, especially the American version, is extremely bad for everybody. It's a horrible situation. But Joe Biden, it is. I just want to clarify that I wasn't naively saying cops have never been bad. I guess I was worried that I'm not indicating that. And they don't report the times when the cop helps somebody. Well, then let's just do the part where they help people and take away all their fucking weapons and their ability to to be the tool of violence that billionaires use, not just billionaires, that the wealthy use when they want to have access to government violence. Their government violence that we fund. All right. So I wanted to get into Joe Biden's role in bringing civil asset forfeiture to the masses. So I'm not going to read this whole article. I just kind of mostly read it, skimmed it a little bit before we got started here. But this story is in the hold on, let me fix this. The story is in the Eurasia Review News and Analysis by Chris Calton. So this is from March of 2020. They start out talking about a family where their son Thomas was caught with marijuana. He was 28. He suffered from mental health issues. He grew the marijuana in the backyard, but apparently he would threaten suicide when the parents would cut it down. So struggling family here. But he was arrested. He pled guilty. He was given probation, and then 4 years later, the police, their son got better. It says here, their son got better. He stopped smoking marijuana, and the episode was behind them. Hey, not bad. No more growing weed in the backyard. But then police showed up and stole their house because the statute of limitations for civil asset forfeiture was 5 years, and it had only been 4 since this young man had, with some struggles in his mind and a family in a difficult situation. The cops just came, and because this home was connected to a drug bust, they stole their house. They seized the property. They kicked them out, and they were just doing it by digging through old cases looking for before their statute of limitations ran out, so they could just rob people of their home. So that's the starting story for this thing. Then they go into some of the history, like it was part of the RICO Act of the 70s, but it was for a long time you had to have a criminal conviction, and it was meant to kind of like take the drug dealers, the cartel bosses and stuff like that, the mob boss guys. It was meant to take their fancy cars and their houses and their ill-gotten gains and stuff. I think if we're going to apply any kind of innocent motivations, but at least they required convictions. But over time, here's a paragraph. Still, the pesky conviction requirement stood in the way of law enforcement's ability to seize criminal assets. In 1978, Jimmy Carter's director of the Office of Drug Abuse, the title drug czar is often retroactively applied, Peter Bourne, decided that the law needed to be changed. Bourne learned of an incident at the Miami International Airport in which a suitcase had been left in the baggage carousel for 3 hours before police picked it up and found $3 million inside. If drug kingpins could afford to abandon so much money, they must be flush with enough cash to hardly worry about criminal forfeiture laws. So then this guy Bourne changed it, or urged Congress to modify the RICO Act to allow the DEA to confiscate assets without a conviction. So now the burden of proof is being lessened greatly. So after a time, then a young senator from Delaware, a young Jobinette, Robinette, Bidenette, was eager to make his mark. And the one way for Democrats to stand out in Reagan era 80s was to be Republicans. So Joe Biden, let's see here, a young senator from Delaware had to do something to show that despite his liberal reputation, he could be just as tough on crime as his Republican colleagues. White supremacist, racist motherfucker. He took notice of the RICO Act and realized that law enforcement agencies were not taking advantage of it. So he saw an opportunity. Hey, you guys could be robbing people. You're not stealing enough. You should be stealing from people. So he pushed forward. There's somewhere in here where, yes, here it is. The Comprehensive Forfeiture Act fixed. Okay, let me just start. Let me rewind a little bit. To take things further, I'm just picking up a paragraph in the middle. The Justice Department argued that law enforcement should be allowed to take substitute property. They knew that they wouldn't be able to take everything that had been paid for with drug money. So it stood to reason that they should be able to take legally acquired assets of equal value, however that might be determined. And finally, with real estate off limits, the government was unable to seize marijuana farms, drug houses, and criminal homes. What kind of home do you live in? A criminal home. My house did 6 years for loitering. The Comprehensive Forfeiture Act fixed all of these problems. Oh, thank God. They can't just steal without any proof at all. If the cop believes that there might have been a drug nearby. But luckily, our hero, Josephine Robinine Bidenine, came by and fixed it. Biden introduced a new bill in 1983, the Comprehensive Forfeiture Act, and its provisions became law the next year. Under this law, federal agents had nearly unlimited powers to seize assets from private citizens. Now the government only needed to find a way to let local and state police in on the party. Oh, cool. The feds are doing it. Let's get the local yokels in on this robbery, too. Biden's bill was passed as part of the 1984 Comprehensive Crime Control Act. In addition to a slew of new powers for prosecutors, the burden of proof for asset seizure was lowered once again. Agents had to only believe that what they were seizing was equal in value to money believed to have been purchased from drug sales. By the way, snakes are just like lots of little men in a sleeping bag. That's what a snake is. It's just a man. It's like a whole bunch of men in one bag. A long skinny bag. See? That's how you charm women, guys. That's why they call me the snake hand. Okay, what? All right. This is going on the internet. Motherfucking shit. Agents, okay, parentheses. Agents had to only believe that what they were seizing was equal in value to money believed to have been purchased from drug sales. All right. Yeah. Okay, fine. More significantly, the bill started the equitable sharing program that allowed local and state law enforcement to retain up to 80% of the spoil. So if the cops pull you over and you have like 10 grand or any amount of money, they could say, I believe this had something to do with drugs and it's mine now. And then you can like go try to get the money back from going through Byzantine court system, and you might get a percentage of it back. Even if you weren't charged with anything, even if no crime was committed at all. There's tons and tons of stories of that happening. There's some people that they don't trust banks. My brother knew a guy, his first wife, had some kooky uncle who was a backpack money dude. He had like $40,000 or $50,000 in a backpack that he always carried with him. He just, for some reason, he just had all his money in one backpack. Which is just not, I mean, I guess there's something kind of innocent and simple about it that sort of makes sense in a way, but just put it in a bank and then it becomes fake money on a credit card or on a debit card. Just, geez, guy, come on, quit being a weirdo. Just pretend it's fake money like the rest of us do. But like, I've heard stories where people are like that, and the cops will just be like, "What's this money for?" And they're like, "Oh, that's my money. It's all my money." And well, it's too much money for one person to be driving around with, so it's ours now. We're just gonna keep it. So here, back to the original story. The law took effect in 1986, the year before Thomas Lopez pled guilty to charges of growing a marijuana plant in his parents' backyard. Now, this guy was there saying he was having some issues with mental health. What caused more strife and pain in this guy's life? This plant he was growing in his yard, gardening is one of the healthiest things you can do. It's very, very healing because I think it's evolutionarily like harmonizing, copacetic. I don't know if that's the right word. And then smoking it. Good. He should do that. Did that cause, and maybe that did cause a little harm to him, but maybe it helped him get through his day. Or did the, goon squad, the violent, brutal cops caging him, charging him with something, sending him into this court system. I don't know if he was imprisoned or not. And then stealing his parents' house. Could that have also maybe negatively affected his mental health? It's just the violence of the drug war is an absolute historic crime that it needs to be ended. And Joe Biden won't even fucking, pardon people who are in jail for nonviolent offenses or change the, schedule rating for marijuana. It's the government still considers it as dangerous as heroin, which is just bullshit. Okay, so in 1987, when Thomas faced the judge, the government had just made it so that his local police had an enormous incentive and unchecked authority to seize property from private citizens, so long as they could show any flimsy connection to drugs. By 1991, the Maui police were running out of easily seized property, so they started combing through case files within the 5-year limit to find new sources of enrichment for their precinct using expanded RICO powers. One such file brought Lopez home to their attention. In the year their home was confiscated by police for a minor 4-year-old drug charge, $644 million were seized, in assets were seized. In 2018 alone, the Treasury Department's forfeiture fund saw nearly $1.4 billion in deposits. And there's another report here, report from December 15th of 2020. The total amount since 2000, states and the federal government have forfeited at least $68.8 billion that we know of. That's a weird phrasing, though. Have forfeited. That makes it seem like they had it and then they gave it up. So forgive me if that's inaccurate. But anyway, Joe Biden had a lot to do with this whole thing. He was the primary guy who made sure that this was possible. And here's a video of old Joe, ironically, young Joe. This must be pre-hair plug. No offense to any of my friends and brothers and sisters out there that have issues with their body hair. I clearly do. My fucking beard is falling out, and I went bald at 19, which is why I believe that gives me a right to comment on anybody's hair as long as they are white and male. That's my own privilege I claim as a balding teen. Yeah. So do the hair plugs, go for it. But never mind. I'm not going to say what I was thinking. People have to cope in their own ways. Here's Joe Biden.
Severe penalties. We changed the law so that if you are arrested and you are a drug dealer, under our forfeiture statutes, the government can, take everything you own.
Wow, what a legislative innovator. I don't even think you need to be arrested, though. I think that's bullshit.
Everything from your car to your house, your bank account, not merely what they confiscate in terms of the dollars from the transaction.
Oh, he's so tough. Isn't he tough? Don't you want to vote for him and Ronald Reagan? Ooh, he's just like them Republicans. They don't take no shit from nobody.
That you just got caught engaging in. They can take it.
Fucking coward. I hate this piece of shit. I hate Joe Biden.
Everything. We have laws in the last several years where we don't allow
You're bald.
Judges' discretion to sentence people. Flat time sentencing. You get caught, you go to jail. Well, all of these tools have been at the president's disposal for the last 100 weeks and more. Now, if America's crime problem is
part of the logic, and so much of this is just pure raw white supremacy, iterating this nightmare fucking racially divided apartheid state that is America, modernizing it. It iterates into more modern versions. But I think they tell themselves that, well, not only are they going to take the money from the transaction, but they're going to take your drugs. Of course, we know that. They're also going to take your house and your car and all your other money and your property, which they probably tell themselves, well, gee, well, if people really know that there's going to be some severe consequences, not just losing their freedom, their drugs, and their drug money, but everything else, then they're not going to do it. Has that worked? Does it work like that? Abso-fucking-lutely not. Google Portugal, comma, drug issue. Okay? That's your homework. No, but they legalized it there, and guess what? Drug use is way down. Drug overdoses are way down. Cost of enforcing, rehabs and shit is way down. Like it's almost like we could just treat these as strong chemicals that should be regulated in some way. We could. Okay, all right. I don't need to. Fuck Joe Biden.
It's worse than it ever was. It's not because the Congress has failed to give the president the tools. It's done its part, but rather because the administration has failed to use the power given to it by the Congress over the last 5 years, and in particular the last 100 weeks, to bring this epidemic under control.
So if I'm looking at the screen, it looks like this is 91, which would be during the HW. So he's lecturing the Republican president for not being aggressive enough, letting people rob citizens and regular folks. Jesus Christ. What a violent person. And what a despicable type of thing in a society that would allow that. And this is the 90s, Clinton ran as a tough on crime guy. They're all just Republicans. They're all just trying to out-Republican each other because they wanted to emulate Reagan. And we've got Joe Biden became president in 2021. This dinosaur, this fucking rotten, oh my God, whose whole career he spent trying to impress his Republican pals. And guess what? Just recently, our wonderful leader here was giving some speech somewhere. I don't know where. It's on the top of my tongue, but I can't find the tip. So he praises a praiseworthy man, the George Clooney of Washington, D.C., Mitch fucking McConnell.
And Vice President Harris, Majority Leader Schumer, Mitch McConnell.
I'm so much older than I was when I was in those younger clips.
Mitch, I don't want to hurt.
Let me start over. So he's at some kind of meeting where Schumer's there, so it's like a cross-party thing.
And Vice President Harris, Majority Leader Schumer, Mitch McConnell. Mitch, I don't want to hurt your reputation, but we really are friends. and
so, Mitch, I don't want to hurt your reputation, but that's like politician charm. That's like DC, like, hey, I know I'm a Democrat, but if a Democrat says something bad about you, then it would hurt. It would look bad to you and the fucking knuckle-dragging redneck hicks that vote for you, you fucking piece of shit, because they know you've trained them so well to hate Democrats like me. But I'm about to suck your dick because I'm a fucking politician and we're all in this same orgy together.
that is not.
Sorry, my earpiece doesn't work because my shit's old, so I have to keep redoing it. Hold on.
And that is not an epiphany we're having here at the moment. You've always done exactly what you've said. You're a man of your word, and you're a man of honor. Thank you for being my friend.
No, you've always done exactly what you said. You're a man of your word. You're a man of honor. He's talking to Mitch McConnell, Bram Stoker himself. By the way, did you know that Dracula is just one man in a bag? It's a sudden wash of self-doubt over whether that bit's going to work. Not that it was planned. It wasn't planned, okay? I took Improv 101 when I started doing comedy all those many horrible years ago. Let's just listen back a little more. One more go at the Mitch. I want to see. Let's pretend we're Mitch. Maybe we'll, have a response.
I don't want to hurt your reputation, but we really are friends. And that is not an epiphany we're having here at the moment. You've always done exactly what you've said. You're a man of your word, and you're a man of honor. Thank you for being my friend.
Joe Biden, he'd kill you. He is just like what? It's just so stupid. Even if you have nothing but gushing praise for your best friend, Mitch McConnell, because you've been colleagues for so long. You've both been upholding white supremacy for generations as powerful members of this government. Why is this? This is what they call comity, comity, where like the old timey days, and like Democrats love to prove, and this carried some cachet in the 80s and the 90s when it was like, Tip O'Neill and Tom bullshit something. We're buddies. They hate each other on the Senate floor, but they go and they murder boys and girls at Jeffrey Epstein's island together, and that's how we know that they're pals. He's playing this old game where the Democrats have this fetish or some sort of hang up on proving how friendly they are to the Republicans. And he is so like, this is not the battle. This is not the tactic. I don't think there's any, I've heard other commentators talk about this. I don't think there's any, like, he knows that he's actually causing problems for Mitch McConnell, but it doesn't work like that. Especially not with this world of completely broken attention spans. But I don't even know what to say. There's probably a lot more I could say. Honestly, I'm exhausted, but this is the person the Democrats put in charge. No, Mitch McConnell, you cause a lot of problems for people in this country, and you're a piece of shit. And your presence here demeans us all. What if he said that? Like, he'd probably get in trouble. The media would freak out the way they kind of police behavior. It's just unbelievable that this is like, this guy has, and he's been an immense not stopping point. Thorn doesn't even come close to describing it, but he's been an obstruction to any kind of progress the Democrats had tried to make over any of the past years, even in trying to make progress just to maintain their own fealty to their capitalist overlords. And that's actually the real truth of it all, is that these guys are partners in Project Capitalism. They are part of the same squad. One differentiation that a podcast I listen to fairly regularly is Matt Cushman's, or Chrisman, I don't know what his name is. One of the Chapel guys has a thing it's called Grill Stream, and he's so well read and educated. Like, he understands history, and he contextualizes things in a really smart way. He does these kind of like feverish rants. But he was explaining the kind of differentiation between like the billionaires that support the Democrats and the billionaires that support the Republicans. And the Republicans are sort of like the old industrialist titans, the kind of lumpen billionaires, to use a phrase from Marx. I think that's from Marx. I'm not all that read up on all the theories, so don't feel free to correct me, but do it with Vaseline up gloves. There's the lumpen billionaires that are like the Koch brothers, and like the Chris Farley's dad in Tommy Boy. not that, but like the kind of those sorts of people, and the people who own big game reserves, for instance. And then there's like the Hollywood and the entertainment and the kind of tech billionaires that are sort of part of the liberal establishment. The left, they're not the left, but like the Democrat billionaires are sort of the coastal billionaires, whereas the Republicans are. That's very drastically oversimplified. The billionaires have plenty of interests that, whether they're lumpen or coastal, they're in the same class for sure, and would protect each other in that class. But they do have, there is a differentiation there in terms of how their political funding flows, and that. But at the same time, it just means that both sides of our government are team billionaire, no matter what. They're always going to be that. They're always going to be for that only. So how does the impotent and circumcised, and what's worse than circumcision? When they circumcise the entire thing? Castrated? No, that's just a... Gonna have to write my senators about this one. But the left, the socialists and the progressives and the social democrats and the democratic socialists and everybody like me and such, and pick your word, have no political representation and have very little membership or recognition. We have a few, and it builds because every fucking politician runs on essentially, progressiveness and socialism when they are trying to get people to vote for them, because people generally like policies that are grounded in reality and that are based on real solutions. That's I don't care what you fucking call it. I just know that conservatism is not the answer, nor is liberalism, and those are the two dominant ideologies underpinning Republicans and Democrats. That's why we have a conservative Republican president right now who calls himself a Democrat. So, okay. All right. Well, I think we got to the end. That's fine. I did an hour. Why am I working real hard on my video? Excited to share it. Looking forward to having it done. Still a ways to go, but I feeling nice about it for some reason. And some woodworking stuff. Let's just do a little. I got a lot of walnut cutoffs from work, and I got some trays. These are not even done. I gotta sand them up, and this one is kind of fun. I need to fill in these gaps here because I fucked up on the table saw. Sorry, audio listeners, you just get to hear wood clanking noises. This one is the Coupe de Grace. This is blue. See the blue? Fucking cool. That line is epoxy. This was a fucked up piece of wood that had like a split kind of thing in there, and I filled it with some blue plastic. So that's kind of cool. It's all glued up and nice and getting ready to be pretty. And then now this one has some rounded edges. So I did that on the disc sander, which is also how I removed this knuckle. You see that little pink spot on my knuckle there? That was a disc sander lapse of concentration. So I learned a fairly painful but ultimately pretty cheap lesson on being careful around that fuck. It's a 22-inch giant metal plate with 60 or 80 grit sandpaper, and it spins on a huge electric motor. I don't know how many horsepower, and it rips knuckles off the knuckle spot very quickly. It also shapes and polishes walnut and oak. So this one's kind of cool. It's got some nice circular bits, a few little gappy knot hole voids here that I'm probably going to put some blue epoxy into, just because even the smallest bit of blue, I almost prefer less color than more color. I just find that little tasteful splashes of color. Well, I guess tasteful is not really up to me, I suppose, but I do love the way that the color comes out of these things. And once these are oiled and sanded up nice and pretty, they're going to be good. Like you can see, this one has these dark bits on here. That's from burns. That's actually heat from the sander, probably. Could be from the table saw too. You can actually no, that's from the table saw. If you let it sit along the blade, it just heats up really fast. So one of the many things we woodworkers keep track of. Most important thing I keep track of is my fingers. I want to keep them. Oh, and I got health insurance. Remember last week we did a tour, and I went in there and I demanded a raise. I didn't demand. I asked my boss. We had a conversation. I like my boss, nice guy, and I got a raise. So that actually worked out. It was more than I was expecting, and I was pretty underpaid though. But I was like, still. But now, some of it's things I can afford to fix my car now without having to borrow money from somebody. So that's good. That's nice. That's a achievement unlocked, I guess. All right, cool. I hope that was fun, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Leave comments. Click on likes and subscribes. I have a Patreon that's available, although there's literally nothing special about it. But if you're feeling like you want to fork over a little cash, that's there. But I'm not putting anything up there. I am going to send like stuff like these trays are going to be one of the kind of gifts. I don't know if these exact trays, but I do want to include some sort of woodworking prize as that'll be one of my, other than the obvious, hook of just like, off the charts charisma and charm, slightly sociopathic charm, doesn't use words repeatedly in the same sentence, charm. I do want to stand out from the crowd as someone who makes his own Patreon rewards or something like that. And maybe they'll be for sale too, I think. I don't know. I should probably sell this shit eventually. Doing stuff for sale to sell just feels gross to me. It's just like, really, we have to involve money. It's just so fucking disgusting. Like, I like woodworking and I love it, but like the idea of it being like, I made something beautiful and it is very, like, I put some love into this and I put some heart, and it speaks to you and it invites you to touch it, and it's a piece of 3D poetry that you can embrace and hold. Only if you're rich. Only if I charge a lot of money because it took a long time. Like I just wish we didn't have to involve money in this bullshit. I don't know what the answer to that is, but I just want to send stuff to people, honestly. But money's the thing. We need money because our Priuses need their batteries replaced and shit like that. So, all right, good. Now that I'm saying goodbye, it's like I don't want to leave. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Take care of yourself. Forgive yourself. What happened wasn't your fault. It's okay. You can forgive yourself. So start with that. You're not perfect. And stay tuned. We got more coming up. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.